Hello, everyone. This is Rebekah Freedom, and this is episode number 55 of Heard Not Seen, produced by John Beethan.
Who just got back from Kyle C's workshop in Glendale, California, September 9th and 10th. It was fabulous. If you ever get a chance to go. Sold out. Everything he does is sold out. 1,400 seats.
Like Kyle, we'll fold it in today because I know that he talked about a lot of different topics, and today we're going to be talking about what the hell is a healthy relationship, because I clearly am still finding out what the hell that is.
Well, I would say that when you think you know, it will be gone again.
So what did Kyle, like, as far as nuggets that you left, like that would really apply to people in search for themselves, from healthy relationship, from just that sort of arena of life? Did you really glean anything from your time with Kyle?
A lot. So I would say this. I came back with this one because it's in context, is that people don't break up with people. People break up with expectations.
I don't know what that means. I just think that it sounds good. It sounds like put that on a bumper sticker and let's make a T-shirt out of it.
Yeah. His workshop's really awesome. First of all, I never laughed so hard in my whole life. Mm-hmm. He is a comedian, but transformational comedian. He had singer, songwriter, guitarist, great guy, and jugglers, magicians, all sorts of entertainment to keep us all going. It was from like 10 o'clock to 7 o'clock at night, Saturday and Sunday. Granted, an hour and a half off for lunch. But what did I glean was, for me, it was just a reminder of a lot of stuff I think I already know. But it was awesome in terms of just understanding that most of the problems we create for ourselves in our head.
Well, that's a great, you need to say that one again for the people, because that is really like the core that we're going to dig down to about healthy relationship today. Most of the problems we create in our head.
Yeah, it's called an inside job. That's what I call it. Mm-hmm. So I will, I'm waiting to hear from you.
Yeah, we're going to jump on in here. And so I want to say to that point, there are so many mentors and speakers and places that you can go to really learn about what a healthy relationship is. And I'm going to share my story. So thank you all for listening up to this point. I have spent quite a bit of airtime on this little thing called Breakup, both promoting my book, Breakup, Rehab, and also because I have been going through the process of a breakup and taking my own medicine, really. And I'm back in therapy, and I took several years off from that. And then I did something that was really monumental for me. And you would think this is something that I would have invested in years and years ago, but it took me a moment. Took some time to get humble and get with the 12-step program, CODA, Codependence Anonymous. So when I was an addictions counselor, I used to take my clients to AA and to the 12 steps. And that's what inspired Breakup Rehab, is like, why wasn't there something like this for Breakup? But I really, really altered it to a really different degree and didn't keep to the strict 12-step model. Now, here's the amazing thing, is having been an author of a 12-step model, having gone to AA, but not having a alcohol addiction issue, I knew under the surface for quite some time in my life that I have had a love relationship addiction issue, and substances have never been my Achilles heel, but approval, specifically from men, have been. So Codependence Anonymous has really opened my eyes to some of the things that I always just thought, I'm just being helpful. I'm just trying to support somebody with my knowledge of what I've studied in school. And I'll often find myself when I feel a relationship slipping away from me, I go into this frantic fixing mode, this diagnostic mode. Or further, if I meet somebody where in the heart of hearts, I know we're not really in alignment, but I so badly just want that affection, that love, that attention, again, codependent driven, that I go into some of these codependent denial patterns, low self-esteem patterns, compliance patterns, and control patterns. And I'm going to read what some of those are. The denial patterns, as identified by CODA, is I have difficulty identifying what I am feeling. I minimize, alter, or deny how I truly feel. Think about how many times you've emotionally contorted to be able to please your partner. I perceive myself as being completely unselfish and dedicated to the well-being of others. Oh, I just like to really give and give and give and give. And then the low self-esteem patterns, I have difficulty making decisions. I judge everything I think, say, or do harshly as never good enough. I'm embarrassed to receive recognition, praise, or gifts. I do not ask others to meet my needs or desires. Hyper-independence. I value others' approval of my thinking, feelings, and behaviors over my own. I do not perceive myself as lovable or a worthwhile person. And of course, there's a couple more that really hit home in the compliance patterns. I accept sex when I want love, and control patterns. I believe most other people are incapable of taking care of themselves. I use sex to gain approval and acceptance. And while sitting in this meeting, and actually this was my very first meeting ever, and going over these things, it dawned on me. It didn't matter how much yoga I did, or green drink I did, or the masters that I had, or the mindfulness I had, or as much avoiding of meditation that I've done, and sleeping in, and whatever with my life. At the very core center of it, is this powerful force, this disease, this illness that is codependency. Where my worth, my value, and my identity comes from an external source other than self. So here is the powerful renewing force of the 12-step program, is to say that I desire a healthy and loving relationship. People go around, hello, my name is Rebekah. I desire a healthy and loving relationship. Hello, Rebekah. And then you go into your share and you listen to other people, and you immediately feel this sense of community come around you. And then the emphasis really rises up, where it's hard. The distinction is that people constantly will leave, they'll do throwaway relationships. They'll just leave one relationship and get into another one, leave one relationship and get into another one, or jump in and use sex as intimacy or intermediacy, basically, immediacy of intimacy, like just getting it on and hoping to build a relationship off of that. And I will say, you know, I certainly let the longing and desire and loneliness become a constricting and exacting force in my life, because at the core of my being, in my younger self, has always felt that I can't do life without my parents. And for those of you who are just listening, this might be your first episode of Tuned In. Both my parents died in my 20s. My mom died when I was 27. My dad died when I was 20. He's been gone for 17 years now. And granted, 20 years can mean a lot to somebody, but it's not the same as 40 years with a father around. And my mom, by the time I was 20, I was in college and I was learning how to be an adult, and she was overwhelmed with grief and trying to figure out her life. And further back than that, my father was unfaithful to my mother multiple times, but she decided to stay in the relationship. And there was always a circumstance that allowed for her to do that. We'll stay for the kids. I'll stay because of the business. I'll stay because we have a spiritual connection. Obviously, I'll stay because we have so much history together. I'll stay because you got with me when I was like sick and learning how to live life again. And I don't know if she ever stayed for herself or what was alive for her was martyrdom, righteousness. I'm staying for the righteousness of this. So we inherit codependency. It's something that it gets handed down from one generation to the next. And that is not to say that anyone's a victim to it. You can certainly choose your mentality around it. And I'm choosing to really examine my last relationship through the lens of codependency. Because I will say, it hurts like a son of a bitch when you bond with somebody because of codependency. It is an addiction. It's an affliction. It feels like I cannot go on without this person in my life. I just can't see my life without them in it. And it doesn't matter if they don't want me, if they have rejected me horribly. I can't envision life without them. And it becomes an addictive cycle of, I'll just compulsively send this text. Compulsion is a definite sign of codependency. Isolating, closing off is also a sign. So let's talk about the 12 steps. Let's really get into them, because I think it's an important thing for all of us to dive into, no matter where we are in our lives. There's some way we're coping, and there's probably some addiction, either obvious or covert in our lives, really driving our behaviors and making us unhealthy. So let's go through the 12 steps of Codependence Anonymous. 1, we admit we are powerless over others, that our lives have become unmanageable. 2, we come to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. 4, make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admit to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, not your obsession, another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. 7, humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. 8, make a list of all persons we have harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9, make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we are wrong, promptly admit it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to other codependents and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Those are the 12 steps of codependence, very much like AA as well. So in addition to traversing this breakup by getting in a support group, I also I started working again with a therapist who's known me for 2 years. We did work together for a long time, and she knew my whole story. And I shared this a little bit before, where in our first session, she said, well, you just don't let people break up with you. You just don't. You don't let go. And that might be a fatal flaw, but a character defect. And I also believe that when I open my heart as deeply as I do and let someone in it and let them imprint on that, then for me, they're family. It doesn't mean they're functional family. It doesn't mean we're going to see each other every Christmas. There are men in my life that Josh and Dan who are family. And I only talk to Josh, but maybe once a text message every other year because of his complicated situation with his baby mama. And after 5 years of not being able to talk to Dan after our breakup, we had a great conversation last night, and he was like, I am going to shake you, Rebekah. He's like, you should be the one telling the person you broke up with that that they're not your life partner. He's like, you just have to look at lifestyle. You're not aligned. You're not aligned. You want the lazy Sunday mornings and the house and the home and the commitment and to do life together, to do business together, to all the minutia. And that's what you want. And the other person, it was in a place of just exploring open relationship and different modes of spiritual awakening. And you just have to really examine lifestyle and begin to envision the ideal. So I appreciated the advice. And he's like, and it's okay to not talk for a while. It's okay. It's okay to just like not have to check in and make sure it's okay. And so I'll say that's another part of codependency is you want the sense of control, the sense of certainty over the outcome. You want to feel like you are God. And one of the principles, one of the affirmations in the 12-step program in Coda is God is God. I am not God. I'm not God, and I think that really box in the face of the manifestation wavelength that we've all been on of like vision boards and manifest what you want. And there's some magic to that, I'm sure. But even more than that, I love what Michael Beckworth says, which is instead of the vision I have for my life, I ask, what is God's vision for my life? What is God's vision for my life? He says the acorn, imagine this little acorn, tight, and it knows itself as an acorn, but then it asks, what is God's vision for my life? And it starts to see and feel this essence of an oak tree that has never been on the earth before for the first time. What is God's vision for my relationship? To be visioned, to have your body as a vessel of the visioning that God has for you. And so in this process, this very, very humbling process of not being the guru, not sitting in the seat of, look how great I am. Because what I understood when I went to therapy a second time is that this little girl inside of me, my inner child, is all she's known how to do to exist and to survive is to fix. Let me be the problem solver. Oh, Rachel's crying. Oh, it's my sister. Go change her diaper, get her ready for a bath, watch her, just the essence of growing up a little bit too fast, having my dad come to me and task me with the choice of whether he was going to leave my mother or stay. At age 9, it was too much. It was too much. And so these wounds, maybe for the first time in my life at age 37, something brand new is happening. And I will say the journey is painful. It's very painful to have this sense of no matter what I do, I'm not lovable, or the people I love leave me, or whatever the message is carried there. But through this process of going to Coda and through therapy, a powerful, powerful message was delivered. And that message was when I was working with my inner child and we were talking about having to go on my life without Joseph, like my therapist said, you're just going to have to go on without him. There's someone who's going to be in greater alignment with you. And I couldn't even imagine that. But then all of a sudden, the miracle of that session showed up when she just said, what does your inner child want? And it said, do what you love and don't wait for people to love what you do. Do what you love, Rebekah. Do what you love. Like, why are you like forcing yourself to be a therapist just because you got a degree in it? Like, do you love it? Does it light you up? Like, do you love to write? Do that. Do you love to dance? Do that. Do you love to sleep in? Do that. Do you love almond croissants? Do that, right? Like, the Apostle Paul says that Everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial, and I will be ruled by no thing. Everything is permissible. We are in this menagerie that is life, where we can choose to use any energy at any given time to paint our world. And so the core of Codependence Anonymous, the core component is these two things: a complete and utter focus on your own well-being, not what is so-and-so doing? How can I show up and make them like me? I need to be needed, right? I'll create a needs-based relationship. And the second is a complete surrender to your higher power. Surrender it, because majority of what we believe to be our life is so much of the shell of what is already passing, and there is spirit is working behind the scenes. Spirit is working. God is working behind the scenes. You are called according to His purpose. There is something greater for you than you could ever imagine for yourself. So when it comes to relationships, codependency is not something that just happens in romantic relationships. It happens from children to parents, in many different configurations of relationships. And so if you really do desire healthy and loving relationship, some of the things you have to learn is boundaries, which I didn't have going into this last relationship. I was boundaryless, It was like, I write about it in Breakup Rehab, the get it while you can, just like YOLO, you only live once, and FOMO, fear of missing out, and just jump in and get it while you can. And then all of a sudden you realize that the fucking you get ain't worth the fucking you're gonna get,
If I may. Mm-hmm. So this came from Reverend Christian Sorensen Sunday. I wasn't there because I was with Kyle, but I do the podcast, so I got to listen and edit. So he's always got gems, right? And Kyle's actually going to be at Seaside in November. Mm. So he dropped this one, which is you can't get to there the same way you got to here. Mm. Mm-hmm. You may have heard that before, but if you think about it in terms of the context of where you're at right now, you're not going to be able to get there the same way you got to here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what created this particular blossoming? What was the windstorm that scattered these seeds, or in the case of certain pine trees or even redwoods, when fire sweeps through, their cones open, and then new life is brought forth, and certainly the provocation, the hope, the arising in our being that we're finally going to meet the person and be done with it and have our partner. When we date and that doesn't happen, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. I've said many times, my appetite has been all over the place. My sleep cycle has been all over the place. Like I use essential oils, and those help. And then today, just as if by magic, it's all started to culminate where I realized I'm not as sick as I think I am, and I'm not as healthy as I think I am. I'm neither. I'm just unfolding. I'm still here on this earth, and as Dan told me, he's like, as much as you need everybody else, the world needs you back. Needs you back. You're meant to be here in this unfolding, and people come in and out of your life. So many people have come in and out of my life. My life could be viewed like an airport. I've had so many people pass through. And then there's the handful that are my history keepers. The ones that have known me for a long, long time. And the ones that are willing to shore me up.
Mm-hmm. My experience is there's always usually just a handful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what the hell is it to have a healthy relationship? It's willing to be humble and to examine yourself and to commit to your well-being and your relationship with a higher power, and not to force or cajole or whatever. And let me say, it's bumpy. The getting into a relationship is bumpy. The getting out of a relationship is bumpy. The middle of the relationship, the boredom that can happen can feel bumpy. There's the dynamics of humanity. So I want to provide just a basic structure. If you are in recovery from codependency, they suggest no dating for 6 months when you first begin the program. If you are in a relationship, they say don't end the relationship. If there's good there, then keep the stability going in the relationship. It's really about you learning your boundaries and how to better articulate them. So if I were to go back and take what I know now, I would begin the relationship with a conversation or conversations about life priorities and visioning for our future and values, like what do we value and how do we think about spirituality? How do we think about finances? How do we think about health and well-being? Not just like the information, the infomercial we get about, oh, I grew up here and this is my mom and this is what I do annually and this is what I do every year. Not the secondary extraction from the little pieces of information, but the direct questioning of, what are your priorities? And something I learned is guys really have a blueprint in their mind about when something's supposed to happen, and they are fixated. They have a fixated blueprint. So if you're the right girl that comes along at the wrong time, they're not going to see you. They're not going to see that. They're going to see, oh, I need to make this money first, or I need to follow my career path first before I can ever really support somebody. And it doesn't matter how wonderful or beautiful, or even if you're homely and you plug in at the quote unquote wrong time, then that's an uphill battle to climb. And what I'll say is that battle will trigger codependency for women, for men, for people who are like, oh, this is my right time. I'm ready. And then you get with somebody who inevitably we keep attracting this. I'm ready. I'm not ready. This weird imbalance.
When you think you're ready, trust me, you're not ready. That's just...
Yeah. If you think you're going slow, go slower.
Because slower is actually faster.
Slower is actually
So what would
faster.
what would it been? How would you be now if you with Joe had done you differently, not him differently,
right,
but you differently? What does that look like? I think you hinted.
Given where I am at this process, I've actually started that because I've had a handful of guys just solicit me, like really directly. I just want you. And I was like, no, you don't know me. You know an image of me maybe online, but you don't actually know me and know my heart. And doing me differently means like my priority now more than ever is health. Like my priority when I met Joe was to be rescued. It was really the Shadowlands of like, oh good, I have a guy here. Now I can just like devote my attention to that, and I can just pour myself into being domestic, and that will give me a sense of value, and that will give me a sense of accomplishment. And I can let my business slide because I'm so lost there anyways. I don't know what to do. I was exhausted. I've been exhausted with entrepreneurship and really exhausted with just taking care of myself. I was just like, I give up. I'm giving up. Like life has no meaning to me. And that's another cue that you're in this codependent space is life. You just are like, life is meaningless. And then all of a sudden someone comes in and you're rushed and now you have meaning and you have purpose because you met this person and they're your dawn and they're your sunset. And God knows we've been inculcated and with that message of love of like, well, now you have your path and your purpose because you met your person. So if I did it differently, if some 10th episode from here out and I'm having a conversation of like, well, Joe and I are dating again or I'm dating somebody else or whatever, what that's going to look like is really, I'm making me happy. I'm choosing for me. I'm rising in the morning and I'm going to work out, and I have money in the bank because like I haven't shirked my responsibilities about creating these programs I want to create for Breakup Rehab. And I'm exploring all different avenues and possibilities of income from, like, I'm editing someone's book and I'm realizing how much I love just the editing process.
That's awesome.
And just that I'm finding more and more that I'm returning to my original state, which was true when I was younger. I was very shy, very introspective. Like I wasn't this loud, boisterous person. And I feel like I actually renew by just one-on-one small groups. I'm not a crowd person. I do love being on stage. I love being able to just to feel the source flow through me. So it's a really great question, and I'm in the discovery of it. And I'm in the discovery of setting really those clear boundaries of saying, like, if we're going to date, we're not going to sleep together for 2 months, we're just not going to do it. And it sounds old school, but I mean, I am of the experiential learning curve here, where I was just like, let's be progressive and be polyamorous and be slutty and be emotionally or sexually expressed, only to be like, I just created a fuck ton more pain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the episode is titled, "What the Hell is a Healthy Relationship?" So, I mean, I've heard 2 months without sex in relationships from so many different directions. And it's really simple. We, outside the podcast, talked about the sugar. Mm-hmm. The sugar. I mean, it's hey. And, gratefully, without that drive and without all that, we wouldn't even exist.
I mean, passion is not to be overlooked. But I would say, just coming from a place of really investing for me, what healthy relationship is, I'm coming from a perspective that majority of polyamory is just a clever way of covering up addiction, sex addiction, love addiction, codependency. Just this, I can have multiple partners. Why wouldn't you love more than one person? Yeah. Love everybody.
Yeah.
Have an open, expansive, non-sexualized heart, agape love. Absolutely. Like, broaden your heart, but be committed to your partner, be committed to your relationship with God and spirit. And to your relationship with yourself. Well, so I was, before that sort of half rant, basically you were talking about, relationship, healthy you've got, I think it's, at least what I'm doing is I'm finding how healthy it is for me to relate to myself. I'm really enjoying myself a lot. And people, you even asked me, what's it like to be lonely? Well, sorry, I'm not. And it's okay. It's okay. I mean, like in Job, God giveth and God taketh away kind of thing. But people really, truly do come in and out of your life. And some are for seasons and some are for reasons and all the other cute little sayings that go with it. So, where I am in my process today, I just started to glean like, oh, I am getting stronger for this. It's been a month and a half, and I can look back and I can say, wow, when I'm in my codependency, I get in fix-it mode. And I don't even pretend to allow the person to show up who they truly are, because I'm terrified they won't love me for who I actually am. That I have to be in performance mode. Look, I cleaned your house. I cooked for you. I did these beautiful things. I hung my head off the bed so you could fuck my face. Check that off the list. And and not realizing the whole time. And this is my great defeat. And this is my great lesson right now, is that I genuinely love Joe for who he is. And the aversions that came up for me, I see were defenses. It was really a sense of of protection. It was just like, well, judge this thing over here, judge that thing over there, judge that thing over there, because I was not boundaried enough to say, I'm not healthy enough for a relationship right now. I'm actually not in a place for that. I'd love to get to know you as a friend. I'd love to spend time with you. That didn't happen. And so the time that was not given in the beginning of the relationship to establish safety, alignment with myself, and direction for my life is being taken now. The time, you don't get to skip steps, truly in AA or anywhere else in your life. That time is being rendered unto itself now. And I am learning the lesson of watching my obsessive mind be like, if I get to talk to him, then I'll feel better. Then I'll feel better. Sure. Then I'll just, then, you know, if we get to see each other, then, oh, maybe there'll be this blossom of possibility for relationship. And today I have this beautiful deck of oracle cards, wild Kuan Yin oracle cards, and they're very long descriptions, but I've been asking about this process, and today it was like, Spirit is working behind the scenes. Don't try to control it. Don't try to pretend that you know what's happening. Just do what's in front of you. Take the road that is here before you. And I feel great comfort in that in Coda, they say, don't date for 6 months. Like, don't have a sexual relationship for 6 months. Certainly it doesn't mean that you can't, if there's an attraction, you can't explore it and have conversation. But set your boundaries, set your healthy boundaries. No, you don't get to just come cuddle over at my house, like from meeting me one time, you know? Like, do we have common values? Do we look at the world in a similar way? And it doesn't mean that it has to be all similar. Certainly, I know for me, Joe and I on the emotional track are polar opposites. He's very fixed and I'm very fluid. Like, and that can be a great partnership in the contrast of things, because you can actually be a yin and yang to each other, and it can be a great conflict as well if that drives your decision making. So what the hell is a healthy relationship? It's no shocker that it's being willing to look at yourself. Like, look at the patternings of your body, look at your thought patterns. Like, look at what you let possess you, because addiction's a possession, to avoid pain, to avoid that life. The most painful part of life is that it's completely uncertain and impermanent. And that in and of itself is such a paradox, because our bodies are wired for survival. They want continuity and predictability. And so when you're wild and you're live with a courageous and open heart and you're brave, you'll step into that uncertainty time and time again. I risked my heart for love. I risked part of my heart for love. I did. And I don't think that that's necessarily, there's a pathology there. And ultimately, the reason I go to therapy, the reason that I would go to support groups, the reason I have conversations with friends is because I desire above all else health in my life. Spiritual, mental, physical, emotional, and financial health. The absolute, to be the arbiter of abundance, to say that, like, you know, I love this saying, is like, I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. My higher power or God is guiding me on. I've made it 37 years. And this is the hard thing to say, is I've made it 37 years. And I could have not. I could have, any given moment, like when my dad died, I could have said, that's enough. When my mom died, I could have said, that's enough. When I went through catastrophic breakup, I could have said, that's enough. When I struggle, and we've all been there, where I'm just like, there's more money on my credit card than in my bank account, I could have said, that's enough. You know, Louis C.K. jokes about it. He's like, we all have this option. You can only do it one time. You get a letter from the DMV and you're like, no, today's the day. Down the bottle of pills or whatever else. And I want to say, for those of you struggling with the depths of despair, anxiety, depression, confusion, this sense of you're nothing without somebody else, saying no good unless someone loves you, unless they love you all the way. Healthy relationship is available at any given second. It's a matter of making the decision to choose it, to prioritize your well-being over anything else in your life, over everything else in your life, to ask, is this healthy? Does this light me up? Am I in alignment with this? And certainly, it doesn't mean life will be perfect. I'm sure as I experiment with this, I'll have more to say about it. But I'm in the middle of my miracle, and I am choking down my lesson. And I'm not perfect, and I on this journey, and we're in this together. So I often invite people to connect with me at my website, and I would say this time, just leave a comment below. Just leave, email at heardnotseen. Just wherever you're at, share this episode with someone that could benefit from it. And if you need more support, go to the Breakup Rehab support group on Facebook. We'll put the link in the show notes. And journey on, my friends, to the realm of healthy relationship. It's here for you the moment you choose it. Thank you so much for listening, and be set free.